Hi, welcome to the Sensible Project Manager Hangout. This is Hangout number 14, and it's going to be a great hangout. Today's topic, we're talking about what does project management mean to me? And that hangout was that topic was chosen because of basically a lot of press that's happening this week. A great thing happened this week with a thing called PM Flash Blog. Um, the concept I hope the concept is about is this, guys, help me remember, is it Shrim? Maram?
Shrim.
Shrim Maram?
I think so, yeah.
Ram.
Okay, thank you. So he came up with the idea. He's a blogger that's down in Australia, and came up with the idea that if we can get a bunch of bloggers get together and produce the same blog at the same time, it's a play on the flash mob, and so this week, September 25th at 0100. Everybody, there was 70. I think I counted up. There was 76 bloggers that talk about project management. Released a post at exactly that same time with the topic of what does project management mean to me. And in that flash blog, it's been a great excitement going around. You've probably heard a lot about it, especially on PM chat, and a lot of things happening. Great blogs were produced. We've gathered, the three of us that are on the Hangout today are some of the participants. We also will probably be joined with a few others. There were a few other people that said that they could come, but it might be a little bit later because they had some conflicts at the beginning. So, and anybody else that is listening to this, if you're welcome, if you participated, or if you want to just get in here and get on the Hangout just to share your thoughts, feel free to send me an email or send me a tweet, and I will add you to the invite here. So, with that said, let's do some introductions here, and we'll start with you, Francis, first.
All right. Hello, guys. Thanks, Mark. My name's Francis Hook. I'm just north of London in the United Kingdom. I run a small project management consultancy company. And when I get a spare few minutes, I like to try and write a blog. I like to try and do it in a bit of an entertaining style and try and make people laugh with that. To try and liven up project management, which to be fair, can be quite a dry subject at the best of times. So I think that's probably the key points from me, Mark.
Great. And then what we'll do is we're going to come back and we'll talk about each person's particular post. How about you, Robert? Robert's actually doing dual duty with the PM chat.
Hey, everybody. Nice to see many of you again. I was on a few weeks ago. I'm Robert Kelly. I am the co-host of PM Chat. I also own my own consulting firm here in the Raleigh area. Focused, there's a lot of specialties out there. We're focused on project delivery and execution. Great to be here with you today and share some thoughts. Thanks.
Great. All right, so and I am Mark Philippi. I am what I call myself, the Sensible Project Manager. Sometimes people laugh at me because they don't know if I'm sensible or not, but that's okay. I love blogging about project management. I have a podcast called the Sensible Project Manager Podcast, and there's a great community that we've started. Have the Sensible Project Manager Hangout community. This is part of that community. And if you're new to this Hangout, we have this Hangout every Friday, a different topic every week for the community and anybody else that wants to join. So with that, let's get started. What we're going to do is we're going to talk through each of our posts, and as I said, we might have some other people that are going to join us, and so I'm looking forward to this. So let's start with you, Francis. I enjoyed reading your post. So why don't you take us through a little bit about what your post was about, the concepts behind it, and then let's talk about that. And then, Robert, as you are looking at the PM chat, bring any of that conversation into it as well.
Sure, thanks, Mark. Well, the angle that I went for with the project manager's sermon was literally that. A religious sermon was a style that I took for that, and more specifically a kind of evangelical, kind of biblical style. I kind of copied and ripped off a bit to try and get my messages about project management across in a bit of an entertaining style. So the key points that I talked about really was the idea of project management as a methodology, and really the methodology was kind of akin to God and generally doing things the right way. So many of the principles or many of the points that were made in a religious sermon I kind of mapped across to the project world. So, for example, I talked about the methodology describing the project life cycle and how it's really important to follow the methodology if you want to get a good project management result. I went through that. I worked through, told a number of stories during it. One example was about developing some software, how some software was rushed. And then ultimately the software had lots of bugs, and then those bugs had to be fixed. And then when the bugs were fixed and the developers looked at the software afterwards, they then found that they had really regained their customer focus, which was one of the really kind of important principles of project management, ensuring that you're delivering good quality software that has got a really good kind of customer focus. So I worked through a number of examples like that, again in a bit of a funny style, drawing in odd sort of biblical references and so forth in various places. But really I think probably the number one message I was trying to get across was it's really important in project management to follow good methodologies to get a good project management result.
Okay, so I have a couple questions. I first of all, I loved the post. It was it reminded me of Project Management Church. And,
excellent.
It's a little different from the church I go to, but I could just vision you getting around the computer and putting your hands on the computer, and it was actually fun. But just you talked a lot about in that post about the methodology, and so tell me a little bit about the methodologies that you use and why those are so important to you.
Well, my background is financial services. I spent a decade working in financial services before moving into the consultancy business. And for me, I saw both sides of the coin. I saw times when project management methodologies were followed and we had really good results. And then also I saw times when project management methodologies and project discipline wasn't followed and there were some really poor results. One example was I remember a particular software project. It was the first time we'd used an offshore development center. It was some developers that were based in India, and we used an agile methodology. And the software was iterated very quickly with lots of input from a subject matter expert who represented the users. And what happened was, in the morning, India time, the developers would come into the office. They would prepare the code, they'd set up the test environment, and they'd have that, any sort of test environment problems they'd iron out during their morning, and then when the UK came in, sort of 4.5 hours later, we would then see the software, be able to test it out, have a stand-up via a video conference with the developers in India, give them some feedback, and then we'd continue to test during the rest of the UK day, and then after that we'd send them some more formal feedback over email, and then sort of send it back that way. And then we iterated through that process day on day on day, and we made so much progress it wasn't funny. I mean, it was just that fast, kind of agile, responding, really good dialogue between the users, between the developers. So that was an example of where a methodology, in that instance, the kind of agile style methodology was followed, and we got a great result. In contrast, one of the last projects I worked on in my financial services time was a project that was designed to close control gaps. So there were some problems with the bank's processes, and we had to close those in order to avoid some penalties from the regulator here in the UK. Now, for me, it was a really interesting project because there were definite success criteria. We had to close these gaps. We had an independent audit team that were going to check that we were closing the gaps. So for that reason, it felt like we had to do the project properly. Unfortunately, there was a lot of senior management pressure to simply get things done, to make progress as quickly as possible, to not really worry about dotting the I's and crossing the T's. And so for that reason, we found ourselves in a situation where the basics of the project hadn't been taken care of. Early on in the project, we hadn't really figured out exactly what we needed to do. And as the project progressed, as we tried to develop stuff, the developers looked at the requirements and said, frankly, I don't understand what you're asking me to do here. So we ended up having to go back to the drawing board, and we wasted time right at a stage where we could ill afford to waste that time. So for that reason, that's an example I'd put on the table and say, methodology should have been followed in that instance, and it wasn't, and time was wasted when we could least afford to waste that time. So those are the kind of themes I try and pull out from the methodology comments, and why it features quite heavily in a lot of what I write.
Great. So just to make sure we're clear, there's certainly a difference between the methodologies that we use and the frameworks such as Prince2, PMI methodologies as well, or frameworks. Correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the one of the key things, there are differences between the methodologies, and I've not studied them all, right? I'm not going to try and claim that I have, but of the ones I've seen, there are, of course, areas of common ground, and then, of course, there are areas of difference. But one thing that I think is fairly consistent across the board is that each of the methodologies say you should customize it to whichever project or industry or whatever it is you happen to be working on. I mean, even within companies, a lot of the time they'll have their own bespoke methodologies that will be somehow derived from PMI or derived from Prince2 or, feature a bit of Agile, whatever. And, oftentimes they believe that they know exactly what they're doing and they've come up with a brilliant sort of methodology. But I think it varies, and I think the key is to kind of customize it, and I think that's where the real intelligence, that's where the real value add comes in for guys like us that are in the kind of consultancy business, is actually understanding the theory, but then being able to translate it into the language of the particular organization you're working in, and understanding the particular nuances of that organization so that you can make good quality recommendations to them.
Okay, great. Hey, Robert, please let the PM chat know that if they have questions for any of us, ask any questions. We'll see if we can address them. So,
will do.
Okay, and then if there's anything that you think that that we need to bring up here as part of the discussion, just go ahead and hop into the conversation.
Yeah, so I am just to kind of give you a little insight. I asked the question out to the folks over on PM chat. And some of the folks, so I said, hey, what does project management mean to you? And so we've had things like, getting it done, right? Some folks have said that it's about doing the right thing. Let's see, Michael Greer, he shared one out there. Michael Greer, from words of his student, PM is a technology of manifestation. Almost everything new is created via a project. So some really good discussion going on already. This is I got a good one here. I'm going to see if I can get this right. I don't think I'm going to be able to say it, but Katie Morgan. Katie said, for me, PM is turning. Okay, now this is all one word, no spaces, one word. We need to do that, but OMG, too much involved. Don't know what to do. Into wow, I'm glad that's done. That was basically all one word, so I think I got
it. You did an excellent job on that. I see which one you're talking about, and that's pretty funny.
Yep, I'm going to let them know to watch over here, and if anyone's watching, they know that they can go over to Twitter and follow the hashtag PM chat, and we'll try and intertwine and integrate the conversation here.
Great. So, Francis, let's get back to you. One of the things that struck me on your post as well, you talked a little bit about, kind of at the beginning of the post, about the team knowing, or actually it was kind of strung throughout the post. The team sometimes knows best, and so the idea or the concept that project managers really need to listen to their team and trust that they can help guide as well. So it's not the project manager as the leader of the team saying you have to do it my way. It was more of, project managers, make sure you listen to that. So comments about that?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I guess if you imagine the spectrum of management or leadership approaches, at one end of the spectrum you can have some very autocratic leaders who won't listen, who will just say, this is the way it has to be done. And in some instances, leaders like that can be useful to the organisation. If the organisation is in a crisis and that leader knows what the answer is, the way forwards, having a more autocratic style of leadership can be a really useful thing in those kind of circumstances. It can provide a lot of reassurance to other members of the organisation. At the other end of the spectrum, you can have some very democratic leaders who will take lots of points of view into account. Sometimes when new kind of uncharted territory is required, having that kind of consensus of opinion is a useful thing. If you need innovation from different parts of your organisation, it can come from all kinds of different people. So providing mechanisms to allow people to share those ideas is really important to making that side of things work. For me personally, thinking back to my own experience and my natural kind of leadership style, I tend to more on the side of the democratic. I like to try and involve people in what we're doing, get people to buy into whatever we're trying to deliver. And I think part of that comes from sharing your vision. So on my sort of previous blogs, I've talked about project managers needing to have a mental model that describes, or they can describe to other people how the project is going to work, how you're going to overcome the various risks and issues that you might face to ultimately deliver the end product, and being able to describe the end product in a good level of detail. So I think really that's kind of how I'd answer that. It's key for project managers to have that vision. It's key for members of the team to be able to interact with it. And really sort of, my personal belief is that by going through that process, the vision ends up better than it would be under a more autocratic leadership style.
Great, I completely agree. Well, we'll get to my post, but one of the things that I'm a firm believer in is the teamwork is really important on a project, and if you can get the team to work together and get behind that vision that's part of the project, then great things will happen. So. Great. So is there? We're going to get to Robert's post in here in just a few minutes. We might have to queue up for his. We might have to queue up some music because he had some music in his post. We'll get to that, but just to kind of want to make sure we cover other thoughts that you might have had, Francis, in your post.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I touched on quite a few things in the post. I mean, it's quite kind of broad in terms of the different topics that I talked about. A good example is.
Yes, who has some? Looks like sounds like construction happening outside here, somebody's room.
I don't think that's at my end.
Okay. Go ahead, Francis.
Sure. Jeez. I mean, perhaps I could come back to some of the other words I used in it. I talked about things like the processes and the principles behind project management, and actually just tying in, I saw Susan Madsen wrote about a focus on customer quality in a post on the PM chat a second ago. I think there are some overarching principles that apply in much the same way as there are religious principles that apply, things like sort of treating other people as you would like to be treated yourself. We have a continual focus on customer, or we should have a continual focus on what the customer or the user wants. Another example that I'm always amazed how often this comes out is a lack of focus on the actual business case. ultimately a project is there to provide a return on investment. You should never have a situation where you're saying to, can you imagine this scenario, right? Mark, I've got $500, right, and I'm going to invest this in a project, and if we do really well, I might make $300 in return. I mean, it's absurd. I mean, there's just a $200 loss. Why would I ever go about doing that? I never would, right? It just makes no business sense. But that happens continually in the project world. And it's not just $500 or $300 that we're talking about. It's $500 or $300, in some cases, $1 million that you're talking about, where these decisions get made and projects don't evaluate the benefits. There might have been a business case to start off with. There might have been a really sensible 10, 20, 50% return on investment. But things change, scope moves in and out, risks or issues start to hammer the project, and very quickly that return on investment gets eroded away. So for me, I think a business case is another one of these kind of almost religious principles that projects need to adhere to, and I think quite often we fail to do that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, understanding that business case, making sure that you have a sound return on the investment. And in fact, one of the things that to add to that, you kind of alluded to, is out on Twitter, Helen says scope creep could get in the way. So having good change control is important. So absolutely, making sure that you're not allowing the project to get out of control, and to the point where you're losing money on the project. You definitely need to be able to provide value.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's bizarre because in my experience, I've seen many projects where money is wasted, for want of a better word. Or to be really frank about it, where money is simply wasted, and where I think people who are working, especially in larger organisations, don't always feel the pain. I mean, if the money being lost was coming money directly out of their back pocket, I think they'd feel very, very differently. But because it's kind of the organisations, it's a bit nebulous. They don't necessarily feel they have, the money. The sums of money often are quite large, right? So they're kind of hard to feel and touch in everyday context. So I think for that reason, we don't always do as good a job as we should do of managing the business case.
Agreed. Okay, so we're going to move on to Robert's, but before we do, Francis, I've got to hear you, since yours was built around the whole pulpit type of thing and the church type of thing. Give me a rant from a point of view of. Can you get up on the pulpit and give us a real sermon here?
Oh, of course I can. Yeah. Well, towards the end of the blog, having spoken to everybody for the period and given all my ideas, I think it's fair to say the methodology now trusts you. You have learned to follow the processes and the principles in spite of complications. Squeeze that project manager's hand, infuse them with encouragement, with strength, and press it in. You don't know how hard their project is. You don't know what it's like to be them. Methodology, I call on you to speak to the project managers gathered here today, minister to them, embrace them, and help them become victorious in their projects. In the name of the methodology, the processes, and the principles, say project plan!
Project plan! Oh, I love it. Francis, thank you so much. That was a great rendition. I love it.
Excellent.
Wow.
Hey,
Mark,
Robert,
Mark, talk about yours now.
Oh, you want me to talk about mine now?
I don't want to follow that up. Jeez.
Before I get to mine, then, I will do mine next. Before I do, is there anything you want to bring in from the PM chat? Especially, I can't wait to hear the responses back from Francis's rendition there.
Yeah, that'll take a few minutes, so we'll come back and see what they thought. But a lot of the talk over on PM chat is coming around. So I had followed up while we were talking on question 2 and what gets in the way, and it went down the path quickly around people and working with people. So kind of tying back to us getting people to work together, not working in a bubble sort of stuff. So that's what they're talking about over on PM chat. A fury of info. I had some technical glitches there. I lost the Google Hangout for a moment, so I'm just getting caught up to speed. So that's why I one, I didn't want to follow up Francis. That was awesome. And two, I'm going to try and get caught up to speed and get the chat back on. So if you want to chat a little bit about your post, that'll help me get everything back on track.
Yeah, that's great. I saw you drop off, so I figured something had happened there. So. Well, okay, so I didn't take the religious approach, but I wanted to share. As I got thinking about it, I always like to look at things from experiences that I've had in my life. And sometimes some of the experiences I've had in my life can be related directly to what I do in my life today. So I reflected back on an experience that I had completely unrelated to project management, an experience I had when I was 15 years old. My father came to me with this vision of going on just a glorious hike that was, it turned out to be, I think it was 70 miles or something like that, up in the mountains of the Cascade Mountains in Washington State. We actually hiked from Snoqualmie Pass to Stevens Pass on the Pacific Crest Trail. And so he came to me one winter morning or one winter day and said, "Hey, I got this idea. I've got this idea that let's go on a hike. It's going to take a little bit of preparation and some work on our part, but we can put together a great hike." And so he painted this vision. Then my 15-year-old eyes just kind of bugged out of my head, and I said, "Hey, that," because I love the outdoors, and it was just a great thing that I can imagine. So taking that type of hike up in the beautiful mountains of Washington State was just a glorious thing for me. So I started to spread that idea, and I actually, a friend of mine, my best friend, and this is what I didn't include my post, my cousin, who, if any of you guys remember old movies with Jerry Lewis in it, Jerry Lewis, my cousin was just like Jerry Lewis. And here he was going out he was going to go with me out in the middle of the woods and take this hike. So it was pretty hilarious. So just a week before we went through all of our planning, put our plans in place. The hike wasn't going to be until the following August, because that's when the snow has receded enough that you can take the hike. And so we went through all of our detailed plans, got our food together, our packs together, and all that type of thing. And we just got ourselves pumped up about going on this hike. And a week before the hike, we got a change request thrown in our way, and I got sick. It was kind of one of those things that it was a cold, started as a cold, and then it just kind of settled deep in my chest, and it was just an ugly thing. So it was questionable whether I was going to be able to make it. And just the day or so before, I finally convinced my parents, okay, I can make this. I can do this. And so we went ahead and started out on the trip. Everything about the trip was just wonderful. It just as I had envisioned, that my father had painted in my mind. And we got into the third day, and my cold was I was feeling pretty good, and everything had kind of subsided on my part, but that nasty cold got passed to my dad and my friend. They got to the point where on Friday, I'm sorry, that third day, my father woke up. He says, "I can't do this. I can't go." On the trip, we had something like 16,000 vertical feet up and down that we were going to be climbing, and he said, "I just can't do this." And so he and my friend both were sick enough that they decided to hike out, and they hitchhiked away to get back to the car. And I convinced my dad at 15 years old that myself and my Jerry Lewis cousin could handle the rest of the trip by ourselves. Today, as a parent, I can't believe my dad is still alive, because I thought my mother probably would have killed him. But we decided to go ahead and finish this trip, and we did, and it was just a great thing. But that day that we left that trip, or that my father left, it just started pouring on us. So all of these things were happening to us, and there's just a lot to that story. It was just a great experience. But we got to the point where we had arranged to be picked up, and when my Jerry Lewis cousin and I were sitting there waiting for my parents to come pick me up, and again, 15 and 16-year-olds, and they didn't show. And so some hikers came down the road, and it told us that that the road or the bridge that they would have come in to pick me up in was washed out, and I was no longer going to be able to meet them there. So we had arranged a second pickup point. We made it because another day, another 10 miles down the trail, and we finally met up with my folks. And the reason why I tell that story is because, to me, that is the essence of project management. Not hiking isn't, but the fact that if you think about a project, when we get a project, the sponsor or whoever it is that paints that vision, they paint that vision to us on as the project manager of this is what the project's about, and it's our job as project managers to take and understand that vision and gather a team together and help that team gather to the point where they can understand that vision and get behind it and really deliver on value to the customer. And to me, that's what project management is all about. It's not the methodologies. Sorry, Francis. It's not whether it's Scrum, whether it's PMI, Prince 2. It's not even the soft skills that we have. It's not about the schedule. It's the essence of project management is about taking a vision, transforming that into deliverables and value to the customer. That's what everything's about. All those other things are just tools that we use to get to the end. And Francis, you kind of talked a little bit about that. If you don't have value that you're delivering to the project or to the customer, and that customer might be an external customer, it might be internal business, whatever that is, if we're not delivering value, then why do the project? And so my point of view is that's what project management's about. Anyway, so that's my rant. I'll get off my stump now. So thoughts about that?
Yeah, Mark, I think there was an interesting point you touched on towards the end there about use of methodology and then bringing in the sort of softer skills, the kind of leadership, the selling, communicating the vision, that kind of stuff. At the same time, I noticed on the PM chat feed on Twitter, Susan Madsen was answering the third question, what's wrong? She says, the PM profession relies too much on process and methodology. We need better interpersonal skills and leadership. Now, that's quite interesting because I've been quite I've banged the drum for methodology, and I think in some instances, there is a lack of methodology. So it's quite interesting. She's got a slightly different position to me on that one. I mean, the way that I would frame it would be to say that I think methodologies, or having a methodology in place, is a foundation on which to then build the softer skills, like the vision, like the communication, like the influencing, all of that kind of teamwork stuff. I think fundamentally things just sort of naturally, as a kind of broader comment for life, if you're generally organised about how you go doing things, if you follow processes and follow sort of steps and procedures, generally the outcomes are more predictable. So for me, I think that the methodologies I've been talking about underpin or are prerequisite to successful projects. I don't think they're the complete answer, but I think they're the sort of prerequisite answer. I think you then build on top of that methodology stuff with the softer skills.
Yeah, so that's my point. Is I think that all of those things that we learn in project management, methodologies, the processes, our soft skills, all those kind of things are absolutely important to be able to have as project managers. Those are just tools, though, and so the concept that I'm trying to push is the fact that our job, the essence of project management, is really to take that that vision, transform that with building a team, and transforming that into value to the customer. One of the quotes that I use that I love, and I'm going to butcher this guy's name, but he was a French aviator and author. I think it was back in the early 1900s. His name was Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, and he summed up kind of the concept of what I'm saying is by saying, if you want to build a ship, don't herd people together to collect wood, and don't assign them tasks and work, but teach them to long for the endless immensities of the sea. To me, that helps. If you help your team understand the vision, you can and will deliver great solutions. So that's my sermon. That's my rant. So.
I think part of that vision, it kind of comes. That vision is made up of two things. I think one is the actual end product, the value that's added to the customer. I think the second part is how do you actually get there, and I think the project manager has to address those 2 points. And I think the how do you get there, I think that's informed kind of by the methodology. I think what does the end product look like, I think that's more informed about some of the softer skills, the visioning, the kind of some of the points you've just been talking about yourself.
Great. Robert, comments from either yourself or PM Chat?
Yeah, so I think that, well, this definitely spurred on the Q4 over in PM Chat, which is, you know, what's the balance, right? What's that right balance of methodology being rigid, right, versus you know, being a very valuable tool that we use. So I'm going to be excited to see how they're doing with that. But Francis and folks really cheered on. They were really encouraged by your sermon. That was excellent. So I'm glad there's been a little bit of a buffer, but you know, you didn't let up any, Mark. So, but anyway, the conversation's going good. This is one of these topics that we're a little all over with a lot of great feedback. So that recap. You know, done by, well, a lot of you know Edmonton PM, right, as hashtag. He always does the recaps. This is going to be a tough one for him because they're talking about 3 Ps, you know, people, project management, process. They're talking about, let's see, agreed. There's a lot of argument about which method, right? So as you start talking about methodology, we as PMs start getting into the rabbit hole of okay, now methodology is important, but which one of the methodologies, right? So a lot of really good discussion going on over in the PM chat. Great.
Okay, Robert, are you ready? Are you caught up so that you can share your I got to look and see if I can cue music for yours, but because yours got me pumped up in a different way than Francis's did. But
yeah, so my big thing is that project managers, project management overall as an industry, I'm very, very frustrated because it's being dummied down to templates, checklists. I see a lot of project managers who are really should be project coordinators. They're not project managers. They know very little bit about the business. They're not taking ownership of what they're doing, and it's just so frustrating. And we've essentially some folks are just glorified admins, right? They're setting up meetings, they're taking meeting minutes, and they distribute information. And that's not meant to be, you know, I don't mean to put down admins, right? When I say that, I just mean they're different roles, and project managers need to expect more. They need to step up and really lift. They've got to lift the level at which we are delivering project management and the value that we're bringing to an organization, or else it is simply going to be a skill set that every single employee is going to be expected. So we're either going to become dinosaurs if we hold on to methodology and tasks, right? If that is our, you know, France is not, right, this is not what you're talking about, right? You're recognizing the value of a methodology as a part of a project manager's toolbox. But there are some folks out there that they do not challenge. They get a project scope, they look at that document, and they're okay checking the box. I completed this template, and I followed the process, and we delivered what the customer asked, and they are 100% saying that that was success, that that was value. And to me, that is not, okay? That is not value. I'll be careful because there are some projects that are structured, that are scoped with innovation, with challenge, with all of that in place. But the majority of projects that I'm seeing are not the new iPad, right? They are not, you know, the microwave of our day, okay? The majority of us are not working on those efforts, right? We are improving enterprise process. We're implementing a CRM system, right? So project managers, my point being, project managers have got to grab a hold of two concepts, okay? Everything else will fall into place because as I watch PM Chat, we've been doing PM Chat for 2 years, and folks get it. Folks get the need for the technical aspects of the job. But they have to grab these two things. One, PMs have got to become, have the spirit of entrepreneurial spirit within them. Entrepreneurs know anybody that has stood up their own business, helped start up, maybe helped a friend or a spouse or, you know, whatever the case may be, you do so much with so little time. You're doing so much with resources. You have less than half the budget you need half the time. You don't have the skills. You don't have the access to all the right people. They get creative, but they have such a passion for what they're doing because it's theirs, right? And project managers have got to start taking that same interest. That stuff has to become theirs. Your project is your project. That's your baby. You get the benefit of all the risk being on the larger organization. So you're not like an entrepreneur. If it fails, your family's not eating. You know, you're getting paid. You have that umbrella, that safety of a larger organization, but it doesn't mean that you cannot take ownership of what you're doing. And then the next thing is leadership, right? Too many project managers, again, are checking the box. They host their meeting, they go around a room, they ask, you know, all because we do stand-ups, right? Ooh, let's get agile, let's do stand-ups, right? And it's not driving anything. You're just asking for status sooner, okay? You're catching things sooner, but you're still, many folks are still catching. I'm talking about being a leader, driving the team, driving folks to challenge themselves on delivering more function in the same time, right? I mean, at the end of the day, they're not going to spend more. They're not going to take more time, right? Your clients, they want it now, they want it yesterday, and they want it for free. But you have to challenge your developers and challenge your folks to get more and higher quality in less time. I mean, these are the things that you have to push them. You don't want to break them, obviously. We can't break teams, but we have to take a leadership position. When the business asks for something, are you simply running it through the change request process? Have you taken the time to truly push and drive, learn the business, and drive, maybe innovative ideas, different ideas? Project managers have got to start stepping up their game, or else it's just going to become a skill set that, they're already building it into MBA programs. So unless you start truly adding value, get over yourself, okay? Get over the acronyms, get over the methodology. Everyone knows you're really super important and smart. Start driving value into the organization. Start elevating the game and start really, truly learning the business, learning the market. Take a business approach to what you're doing, and not just a checklist approach. And that's my thing is, I know you guys can do it. It's just for so long we've been beaten down with, the triple constraint and methodology talk that we kind of have to shake that all off and get out there and start driving business. That's it.
Great. One of the things I think the essence of what you're talking about is you got to take ownership. You're right. Sometimes we find ourselves kind of just order takers and just getting in line and taking care of the process. You've got to put your whole self into it and take ownership and drive that content. Absolutely. When I read your post, Robert, I especially I couldn't get the music going here, but I loved how you stuck the music in there, and that was fun to listen to. So
I mean, honestly, we are, one of the things that I always say about project managers, okay, we are often, at least in the projects that I have run, one of the projects was in a hardware company. They used to, for 15, 20 years, they sold hardware. Their business model, their accounting, their systems, everything was set up to follow ordering parts. And we were going to go and now sell and create the first managed service, a service that did not get tied to the sale of a new box, right? That was a total mind shift, right, for the organization. We were tackling something that, other businesses, they do it, but this business, after 15 years, had never done something like that. Other folks, there was another space that I worked at for another client. These guys, they're all over the news, open source, they're innovative, they're super smart. Everyone says, whoa, you're working over there, you must be smart. And I'm not any smarter than the average bear, but they were trying to solve a problem that they had brought consultants in, spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on consultants, had some of the smartest guys in the industry in their company. They couldn't solve it. That's what we're doing as PMs. And that's what we have to realize. Oftentimes, we are the Swiss knife of management. We are SEAL Team 6 who are going in and solving a problem that some of the brightest folks in industry, PhDs, were on this team. They couldn't figure it out. Yet our team did, right? We have been called in to do something special for the organization. Walk tall, know that you are special, know that you are smart, and you're going to solve a problem that other folks couldn't. And you got to take that ownership, you got to take that challenge, and you got to be ready for it.
Man, I don't know about you guys, but I am ready for the game. So, hey, Francis, any comments on what Robert has to say?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting hearing Robert's sort of war stories from the sort of engagement he's obviously had in the past. The comments about as a project manager needing to stand tall and come across as confident and so forth. I think one of there are two ways you can do that. You can either just genuinely do it, and because you just naturally have that vision, that confidence, and so forth, or you can try and fake it. I think the answer is much more in the genuine camp, and I think if people do build up a vision inside their heads of whatever the end product looks like or how to get there, being able to walk around and be confident and inspire followership as opposed to leadership, inspiring that followership, happens far more naturally. And I think in the kind of scenarios Robert's just been outlining, I think that's kind of where he's driving towards.
It's interesting. At my local PMI chapter, it was about 2 weeks ago, we had a speaker in that talked about leadership, and I think that kind of goes to what Robert's talking about. And he was describing the difference between leadership, the big L, the guys that have the title, right? You get the title from being a leader because you have the CEO or that type of a title behind you, and the little L, and that is you can be a leader without having the title. And so I think what we're talking about here is can project managers be leaders with a little L and be able to drive the kind of change we're talking about and really bring great value through delivery of a project and bring great value and benefit to the organization. And I think that is absolutely an important thing to talk about.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah.
I want to share just real quick. I'm reading a book, or I'm wrapping up a book on, I forget what it's called, selling to the C-level, selling to the CEO, something like that. For a project manager, you'd think I'd be better with details. So it's selling to the C-level, and they talk about sales, and it was a partnership between UNC, Keenan Flagler. They had, HP was part of this, and some other consulting firm, and they were talking about leadership, and they were asking them. They said, well, what's the difference? There's salespeople out there, and it talks about the sales models and marketing through history, and the resounding response from, I guess it was nearly 1,000 executives, CEO and C-level, VP and above kind of folks, was that there's a difference, right? Salespeople are salespeople, and your clients don't care if you're a senior salesperson, whatever the case may be. You could have big L, little l. What they looked at was the value, right? And they said that there are folks that are commodity sellers, right? They sell speeds and feeds, they sell features, and they sell product. They're walking around hawking product in their bag, right? But then they said as you move up the stack, they had these 4 levels of I forget what they call it, like trusted advisor, and the top one is to be a trusted advisor. And they said, so you go from commodity where you're just doing stuff, right? You're just getting stuff done, you're very operational, and there's a place for that. Then you move up, you become problem solver, and you're really getting creative and you're helping them solve some problems. But then there's that top one where you will have an inside track and personal phone number of a CEO when you get to trusted advisor, and that is someone that's able to think strategically, right? So Dave from Earth PM wrote about thinking sustainability in your project. It's not just about green, but it's when you hand this thing off, what does it look like 2 and 3 years from now, right? So thinking strategically, solving problems, and forecasting the industry gets you trusted advisor and gets you big L in quotes, right? You may not have the title, but you have a personal phone number of a CEO. And I correlated that to project management in that you could be a commodity project manager simply by completing checklists and just getting projects, you complete them, right? And then you have some problem solvers, and then there's a way to get to strategic advisor for your organization. So when you're able now to talk about and understand your business, how this project is affecting resources, how this project is truly going to affect the business, how you envision it impacting maybe the market, right? Too many of us leave that up to product managers, right? But if you want to get to trusted advisor and you want to one day get the big L, you're going to have to step up into that space.
Great, thanks. Absolutely, it's the things that you do on a project, thinking of it strategically. You're absolutely right. That can and will drive your career. If you ever want to take your career past project management, I've been on both sides, and I actually like the project management side of things. But absolutely, if you can be a strategic thinker as part of the project, that's a great benefit to you and your career and the project as well.
Mark, I've got to say that's a tough ask, doing your project and being a strategic thinker at the same time. Either you've been in the industry and you've got a lot of experience behind you, or you're doing a heck of a lot of homework to get up to that speed, so that the info you're sharing is valuable. It's a tough gig, and that's why there's only a handful of people doing it.
Yeah. Without a doubt, it is. But if you think about it, right? Think about the Gordon Gekko, right? If you guys have seen Wall Street, right? Great movie, but a lot of these guys, those who get the big L, are the ones who are up at 5 o'clock in the morning reading the newspapers, and doing that. And there's nothing wrong. I mean, I know some guys. My first job ever was on the help desk, doing tech support, and I worked with a guy who did it for 10, 15 years. And I always asked him, I'm like, they've asked you to take promotions, and he was totally happy where he's at, And there are folks that take on really cool projects, and that's their passion. So, but like Mark said, if in your roadmap you want, that some senior titles and such, good old hard work and up early, work reading afterwards. Your day job is to complete the project. And everything else outside of that gets you into the corner office.
Well, Robert, I know that you've been talking a lot in a little bit. Is there anything you think we should bring in from the PM chat that you see lately?
Yeah, so I asked them a question, right? So Naomi, a lot of folks know her as Caliph Girl 232 on Twitter. She had talked a little bit about organizational change, and so I just said, what do you do from a PM standpoint, right? As much as many of us want to have that grand influence, sometimes projects, even if they are big, important projects, they're buried a few levels. So how does a project manager really affect organizational change? So the PM Chat crew is talking about that. Abby MC said that you got to be the change that you want to see around you, right? So it started taking personally. No, you're not gonna. The CEO is not going to call you in the office and say, "Talk to me about what you're doing over there." But you have an effect. You have influence on your team, and that's what you can control. Is essentially what all the tweets are coming out about. Is really driving it through personal action.
Great. This has been a great discussion. I appreciate both of you being on. Robert, I know it's a challenge being able to. I've done it before. It is a big challenge to be talking and interacting with the PM Chat. So thank you very much. That's
sure. Thank you. It's always good to be here. And if I'm looking away and stuff, I apologize. I'm not being rude. But this was great. And Francis, great meeting you.
You too, Robert.
Yeah, thank you, Francis, and I absolutely loved how you ended up your little rant there. That was wonderful.
I might have to record the whole thing, perhaps as a kind of a proper 20-minute YouTube rant. Let's see if we can get it to go viral.
That's right.
Well, you can at least take part of this because this is being recorded and it's saved. I will post this so everybody can see it. You can at least clip out that part of the thing, and you can take that part of it at least. Okay, so we are kind of running down out of time. I do want to end this with not only the thank yous for both of you, but again, those of you that are on the PM Chat, Robert, let them know that they'll be able to as usual, find this Hangout that they can review, as well as Edmund PM, is that right? Who will be doing the summary later on Storify.
Okay.
The other thing is, I just want to remind everybody, initiative we talked about last week, as it's coming up in the end of October, October 26th through the 29th, is PM Project Manager Networking Days. So that's an initiative I'm kicking off. I love the idea that we do here in the Hangout be able to get to know each other. 2 months ago I didn't know Robert, and we've already had several discussions. Francis, we met today. That is wonderful. This kind of networking can be done all over the world, whether it be the Hangout type of a situation or PM Chat in person. I'm just going to encourage everybody to go out, set up your own personal networking event. And I say it's an event, but it can be as simple as just grabbing a buddy of your project manager of yours and going to the coffee shop. But do that on the 26th, between the October 26th and the 29th. That corresponds with the PMI Global Congress. And I'm just calling that Project Manager Days. Go to projectmanager.networking.com and list your event there. And if you do that, we can see all the things that are happening, all the different events. Robert, you raising your hand.
Quick question. Seeing we're all social and all that good stuff, you could probably set it up through Meetup and then share links there. So then you could promote it out, and people that are local who are in the community may be looking for PM type meetups and such. So Meetup is a cool application, social, and you'll be able to link it over on your site.
Great idea. Now, the other thing I want to make sure it's clear is I'm not the one that's driving this, other than the concept of networking. So yeah. I would encourage everybody. So that I've heard of Meetup. I've not used it before. I've heard that it is great, and so absolutely go out there and set up your own Meetup. Set up whatever it is, the method in which you do that. List it on projectmanagernetworking.com, and everybody will see them, and people can invite. So, all right, well, hey, we're out of time. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Francis. Thank you, Robert. Thanks, everybody on PM Chat. It's been a great discussion, and until next week, Have a great day.
Take
Cheers,
care.
Mark.